Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, where we talk with key spokespeople in the logistics industry about topical issues. Hosted by Peter MacLeod, editor of Logistics Business magazine.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. My name is Peter MacLeod, and I welcome you all to this latest edition of Logistics Business Conversations. It's entitled The Rise of Parcel Lockers. I'm delighted to be joined today by my guest, Miha Jagodits, founder and CEO of Bloq.it. Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, Miha. It's great to be talking with you today.
Thank you, Peter. Happy to be here.
Now, I live in Warsaw. It's a city that has one of, if not the world's highest density of parcel lockers. So I know all about how convenient they are. It's a great alternative to waiting in for the courier to call. And we see it's an increasingly preferred delivery option for online customers in particular. But furthermore, it's a dynamic and growing market sector for those businesses such as Bloq.it, who provide the tech and the hardware behind the parcel locker boom. So I wanted, Miha, if you could kick us off, please, by telling me and the listener a little bit more about the parcel locker market and the part that Bloq.it plays in all of this.
Yeah, so I think that's a great topic to begin with this podcast. I mean, sitting in Warsaw and Poland, you're probably in the epicenter of all the locker happening. Although lockers are not a thing of the last few years, I think it really started during the COVID times when the e-commerce boomed and accelerated rapidly. And the couriers, logistic companies started to realize that they need to find an alternative methods to deliver items, to deliver parcels, and to optimize the last mile delivery, which is, as we know, the costliest part of the logistic process. And this is basically where Bloq.it comes in. Bloq.it provides the leading smart parcel locker technology, really the end-to-end comprehensive system from hardware to software. We deploy lockers, we maintain them. We're emerging as a backbone of the parcel locker industry. So trying to ease in life of all the couriers, trying to optimize their cost.
So what are the sort of the challenges in collaborating with retailers when it comes to growing their out-of-home delivery sector?
Currently, biggest known challenges are definitely locations. Now that the lockers are a proven concept and that locker networks are benefiting, and one of the things we're realizing is that the higher density actually motivates or inspires for even higher density moving forward because it becomes more and more convenient. So we're realizing that the adoption grows and grows. With that, it means that locations becoming a challenge. So once we begin a project and we deploy first a few hundred, the question is how to get to 10,000 typically, or tens of thousands. And this is where you need to go away from the conventional, okay, let's find either the retail chain or a gas station chain that because we're going to provide location. You need to be a bit more creative. This is, I think, one of the problems currently most couriers or retailers are trying to solve, I would say, when it comes to locker network deployment.
So do you have a team out there on the ground that is actively scouting out potential locations?
So, yeah, it's a good question. So we're currently not helping to find locations per se. What we're trying to do is to optimize a product that is as easy and as adaptable to as many locations as possible. Recently released a product called Next, which is the autonomous battery-powered locker. It's one of its kind. It's basically a battery-powered solution that has all the features and benefits of the typical grid electric locker, and you can basically deploy it anywhere you want. And this is how we enable them to increase the pool of potential locations, and accelerate their deployments.
Right. Yeah, I'm interested in the actual physical makeup of that, because if you'd have asked me before what a parcel locker would look like, I would imagine its installation would involve having to lift up paving slabs and lay in a mains cable. But does this sound like you're breaking the mold then with this new product, the Next?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a industry's bestseller this year in its first year on the market. There are two main challenges, right? One is definitely the effort and the time consumption that it takes to install an electric grid locker in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of electrification and everything that goes on into preparing location to be ready. But there's also the cost associated with it. And once you do this on scale, on tens of thousands of locations, this becomes a real pain, right?
And so what do you need to do? You just need a flat solid surface.
That can be adapted, obviously, with the works, and it's also one of the things we provide. How we approach it, we want couriers to really keep the focus on what they do best, which is delivering parcels, and we want to ease in all the other processes when it comes to locker networks. So typically, we just get a list of locations and we try to do the rest. So we're trying to get as close to them not even knowing to have the locker network as we can, at least on the negative part. Positively, of course, I mean, it optimizes their cost and just the efficiency of delivering parcels.
You don't have to tell us as the listeners the benefits, because most of us are consumers ourselves of out-of-home delivery. But what sort of arguments do you take to retailers to say, choose us, use us? We can help you grow that side of your business.
So there's multiple reasons. One, for example, on Vinted is one of our customers that really put us on the map. What I can mention, so they're not a typical retailer; they are a second-hand fashion marketplace, and their items are relatively low in value. So if you have a very inefficient cost of transportation, you can really significantly increase the cost of the purchase. So what we're offering to retailers and to everyone else with locker networks is essentially a more efficient and more affordable delivery method and transportation. So basically, we're making their products or items to be sold more affordable to their customers, and this way also more appealing for the purchase. So we can decrease their cost and their efficiency. And increase their efficiency.
I understand the typical Vinted customer would be maybe younger, but maybe also more environmentally aware, who don't like waste and want to keep fashion items current rather than sending them to landfill. So that moves me towards the next question, which is, what's sort of the environmental benefits to out-of-home that Bloq.it is proposing or promoting versus the situation which we currently have when you look out of the window and you see white vans competing for curbside space in busy urban environments?
Yeah, so Bloq.it's mission is to accelerate the adoption of the out-of-home. Of course, it has an environmental impact. In general, Vinted actually made a few analysis once they started using the parcel locker network, how many CO2 emissions they can actually reduce. This comes from the fundamental need for the lockers. Instead of driving to every single house or a household, you can simply drop those 50 or 100 parcels at one spot, and you can this way optimize the need for a lot of miles. But the locker also prevents you to have a failed delivery. Many times with a typical home delivery, it happens that either you cannot pick it up, perhaps you're not at home, or the right recipient is not at home, or you're on a call and simply you just cannot receive a parcel. And that's classified as a failed delivery. So then this attempt needs to happen again. So what Parcel Locker Network provides you is simply just a space where delivery is always completed, it's secure, and it's efficient.
I always usually have a version of this question in every podcast I do. It comes in different ways. Of course, so, sustainability is at the top of everyone's list when it comes to, for example, retailers. But there's also something else above that, even higher on the list, and that's cost. And everything comes down to cost. Nothing's changed. Nothing will change. So it's fair to say that an out-of-home delivery network, and a successful and an optimal one, an optimized one, is also a very cost-efficient one from the retailer's perspective.
Yeah, it's what you said. So typically, the sustainability is on everyone's mind, but there's also a cost that they need to be aware of. We're very lucky that our solutions that we provide, so the Parcel Locker networks, actually ticks off both boxes. They are efficient, they're sustainable, and they are cost efficient.
That's so important. Now, you're a tech company, but in my naivety, I think of parcel lockers as physical items. But obviously, there's a lot more behind it than that. So perhaps could you give us an insight into some of the tech that sits behind the parcel locker networks?
So that's very interesting. When we first approached the industry, and our first idea was not to be a technology provider as we are today. Our idea was to build our own agnostic parcel locker network, or just an agnostic network for lockers for any purpose. What we quickly realized is that there's a misconception of what a parcel locker should be and what it should look like. And we couldn't find any suitable providers. You can imagine in most cases, even today, the suppliers and the vendors on the market are manufacturers doing many different products that are also away from parcel lockers. And typically they try to solve this perhaps through some software consultancy companies developing the software part. This never resonated with us. We understood right away that there needs to be a more tech, initially when startup approach to this problem. So we were always software driven, software first, because we knew that this builds the user experience. It makes it easy to integrate through public APIs. And it just makes the whole locker network easier to monitor. So this was our first approach. And then we expanded to the hardware products. And now, of course, as a full package, we also provide leading hardware product, just like the last product I mentioned, the next. But I would definitely say we are a tech company. And what speaks to that is that we also don't own a factory, although we are a leading provider of parcel lockers.
So one word that jumped out at me there was agnostic. You have a stated commitment to neutrality when it comes to your offering. How do you build that trust in your customers when you're working for multiple, sometimes competing retailers?
So this is one of the most important things we're working on commercially. We, from the get-go, we wanted to emerge as a provider, as a supplier that could work with multiple brands. And the brands in our industry are very big. These are big companies. If we just take a look at the examples within our client portfolio, I mean, Vinted, DHL, GLS, DPD, and some others. So these are all very big companies that in certain markets or all markets, they also compete among themselves. For us, it's key, if we want to emerge as a backbone of the industry, to stay neutral, to keep everyone's confidentiality on the highest level. And we're putting a lot of measures to that internally. And we're also looking at the examples in other industries where that happens, when there's a vendor that needs to serve multiple big competitive brands. And we take their positive case studies and we try to implement them ourselves.
This is a question that's interesting from my perspective. I love to, when I talk about logistics, find out a little bit more about how human behavior plays a part in the way that businesses are shaped. And I'm pretty sure that the out-of-home delivery market is shaped by human behavior. For example, I imagine when you're looking across Europe, there are some nations that have, shall we say, a more traditional relationship with their neighbours. So there's less of a need for a parcel locker if you could just drop it around with a neighbour, because everybody talks to everybody else. On the other hand, there may be nations where there isn't those sort of intimate local relationships, and those ones are more ripe for expanding an out-of-home locker network. I wondered, have you come across any interesting little stories or studies around those sorts of areas?
Yeah, so maybe what I would say is even within the nations where you would say the neighbors are friendlier, you can not always rely that the neighbor is at home. I think if you need to ask a neighbor to take care of your parcel, it just means that the locker network is not dense enough. I think density solves all the problems. It really comes to convenience. And there was a survey that was done among countries where the density of lockers is very high. And they realized that as soon as the locker goes a bit further from home, the satisfaction of using a locker falls dramatically. It just drops. So if you have a locker within 500 meters of the radius of your house, the utilization of locker is almost inevitable. But as soon as you move to a kilometer, the satisfaction might risk dropping below 50%. So maybe one of the things I would just reinforce is this density that is extremely important to just the day-to-day getting to used to using a locker.
So 500 meters is kind of the sweet spot when it comes to installing lockers in urban areas.
I would say sweet spot is on your doorstep, but then as far as that it goes, that is still economical.
Yeah.
There's been terms used, I think sleeper's distance. Then they start keeping a flip-flop distance. I think they're somewhere in a walking distance. It's, I think, kind of the sweet spot, probably. Yeah.
I went to a last mile conference in Amsterdam a few months ago, and there was a lot of delegates from the USA there, and we were talking about walking 500 meters, and they were saying, first of all, we had to say, how much a meter was, and then we had to explain. But then they said, well, what's the point in having lockers if instead of having one van delivering 50 parcels to 50 locations, you have one van delivering 50 parcels to one location and then 50 cars driving to that location. So it does feel like there's a kind of a mentality side of things that needs to be overcome should your expansion to the US to take place.
Yeah, that's another interesting topic. We don't live in delusion that the same business model is going to work in the same way in Europe and the US. I think in the US, the customer behavior is very different, right? And we believe that out of home and unattended delivery have huge potential. No one either found the right business model or found the solution that would be appropriate for the local market. It is something that we're starting to keep an eye on more and more.
And perhaps it's my fault, but we've perhaps gone a little bit accelerated there. We need to maybe draw it back in a little bit and ask you to explain a little bit about your company and its setup. You're based in Portugal and your expansion has come out from there. Perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about your footprint.
Oh, absolutely. So we're based in Portugal. Bloq.it currently has almost 300 people. The main offices are in Lisbon and Porto. And then we also have more Central European base in Paris. France is actually also our biggest market. We have, I believe, over 6,000 lockers already there. But this year, by the end of the year, we're going to be present in France, Benelux, Iberia, Italy, Czech Republic, Germany, and UK. So I think our footprint in Europe is getting quite big. And this is also where our focus lies. Today, we just want to be an undisputed number one option for everyone who wants to build an efficient locker network in Europe.
So where do you see your largest territories when it comes to the opportunity to grow your business?
I would say all the markets and the countries where locker density is low, but the countries are big. And here I could say France could still make the case, Spain could make the case, even Germany, UK. These are very large markets where on a locker per capita are nowhere near some smaller countries where the density is very high, namely some Nordic countries, Denmark, and especially in Eastern Europe. Poland is a big country, but the density in those countries is much higher than in some of the more Western European large markets. And this is where we see our main potential.
Yes, it's very true. I have to say, when I walk out of my apartment here in Warsaw, I turn left or I turn right, and there's probably 3 or 4 blocks of lockers, all painted different colours. Do you think there's an opportunity for some sort of consolidation within the industry?
Yeah, so I have to say there's a lot of debates about multiple lockers with different colors being placed in one spot. I see this with slight bias, obviously coming from an industry. I'm much less bothered by seeing a lot of lockers on one spot, but there is an opportunity for agnostic locker. I believe every country at the end, when all is said and done, will have one winning player with agnostic locker. I'm also a firm believer that big couriers will have their own locker networks, and those locker networks will not just vanish.
I have to say, it does feel like it's an enhancement to any neighborhood. When you look at sort of the way some modern tech has been rolled out and in a way imposed on us, you've got these little electric scooters everywhere. You tend to hear more negative than positive stories about them. People say, why can't we have less of those? But it does seem that the example of parcel lockers is the exact opposite. People like them. They're not visually disturbing. They don't cause a noise. They don't have an environmental impact, or should I say negative environmental impact. So it's probably a great industry to be involved with. You've got sort of the wishes of the retailers who really want to get these rolled out, and you've got the wishes of the consumers who just want the greatest possible convenience. So is it fair to say that you're well placed to service this market?
I would say that we're the best place, and we're very happy to be in this spot. We also work very hard to be in this spot. But when it comes to industry, we're proud to be in this industry. We have a big impact on a lot of people's lives. I remember back in 2019 when we were starting, there was most of our conversations actually started trying to explain what lockers are for. Today we're just having to explain how we're different. And one of the things we're very proud of is that although we still have a lot of potential to grow, Today already we're processing over 5 million parcels per month through our locker networks. So we're making tens or soon hundreds of millions of parcels going through our lockers on an annual basis. That means that all these millions of people needs to approach our solution and use it. It's something that's it's not necessarily something we monetize, but it's something we're very proud of in terms of the impact that we provide.
Notice that you were founded in 2019, and forgive me for those of you who suffered losses during the COVID pandemic, but so it's fair to say, though, that it came at a very good time for a business such as yours, because that's when the spike in home deliveries really grew. Did that catch you by surprise? Did that kind of accelerate sort of faster than you obviously anticipated, but faster than you could handle?
Absolutely. It's like you said, a very sad situation. It brought a lot of positives to us. Those times, the industry looks very different since. I would say all locker suppliers or everyone working in the out-of-home or somehow related industry to e-commerce benefited greatly. This was our lucky moment that we just don't want to throw away. We're working very hard knowing that it's very hard that we will be so fortunate again when such a macroeconomic situation would occur to us. You just can't plan that.
Now, Miha, I want to focus a little bit more on the tech side of things. So tell me what goes into a parcel locker, the hidden stuff that we as consumers don't get to see. We've got an interface, and our interface is usually through a smartphone, and then the interaction with the locker is usually through a scanner or a touch screen. That's the visible part. So what goes on behind all of that? That's where's all the magic?
Yeah, great question. For the final user, for a customer, you want to spend as little time as possible on the locker network. So for you, it needs to look as simple as possible. You get a QR code or code, and you pick up and you go. Behind the scenes, you can imagine this parcel needs to come from somewhere, changes a few sorting centers, and go to designated door that needs to be at the time available for the courier. Otherwise, this is a failed attempt again, which is what lockers are there to prevent. So behind the scenes, first of all, the locker and the hardware needs to be there, but on a tech and the software side, there's a lot of data collection that's happening, a lot of capacity planning, an operating system on a locker connected to the cloud, connected to the courier apps. So there's a full logistic process on its own for that parcel to then be in the right door available for a pickup.
And so what about data security? That's obviously a big area as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how do you interface with other systems, with other IT systems? Is that challenging, or are we getting towards an industry standard?
I don't think we're on an industry standard yet. Bloq.it is a company that wants to lead the industry standards. We've been one of the first companies to do a hardware agnostic project. So we've been applying our software of different hardwares and trying to unify with our software layer different lockers. On the other hand, we've been trying to be courier agnostic, so one locker could accept more couriers. And through those developments, I think you could assemble some kind of industry standards.
Are you planning to grow the business outside of Europe?
Yes. We're focusing on Europe. I have to say that we're not approaching very, very actively other markets. I won't deny that US is an interesting market, a bit also because no one was able to crack it in a way that we would like to crack it. So that presents some motivation and room to grow. So shortly, let's say, focused on Europe, keeping an eye on the US.
That will be tremendously interesting if you manage to crack that market. So tell me about your growth in Europe, and give me some numbers on where you sit.
Yeah, so I can give you numbers both in terms of lockers and in terms of revenues. We've always been very public about our numbers. It's part of our strategy to be neutral, transparent. We believe that an infrastructure player like ourselves, as I mentioned before, serving all of these brands, needs to be open on what they do. So we've been riding a wave of this acceleration of e-commerce. So since the COVID years, our revenue went all the way from 3 million to 20 million to then afterwards 40 million. And this year we're trying to hit the 100 million revenue mark. In terms of lockers deployed in a few years, we went from a couple of thousands to this year already hoping that by the end of the year we'll have close to 20,000 lockers already running on our software operating system and being provided by us. The target next year is then to double the entire network. So I would say that maybe in a couple of years from now, we want to reach 50,000 lockers being powered by us.
And that growth is tremendous, and congratulate you on that. That's extraordinary. But what have been the bumps along the way? Have you hit some brick walls somewhere? Have you had a few taken a few wrong turns?
If I'd count or if I explain all the bumps we had, I'd probably never finish. There's been many. The industry is set to be challenging. It's something that we like. We want to do hard things. If you take a look at what we're doing, we're providing here hardware that is operated by software. It's typically placed outside on tough conditions, weather conditions. It's used by millions. So it's just a very complex infrastructure to run. And it's something that we like. We're solving this by focusing on fundamentals at all times. Fundamentals are the team, the talent. We just want to make the best. We just want to put together the best group of people and then make them work as well as we can. And we believe that these fundamentals will bring the results afterwards.
Well, I've always said that logistics used to be the sort of the hidden industry. I'd say that at the out-of-home delivery and parcel locker sector is very much a visible public side of logistics. And we're also seeing the logistics function within retailers in particular moving away from the warehouse and now decisions being made in the boardroom. So who are you hoping to attract with your offering? What sort of job title, what sort of level of audience would you want to be reaching out to hear this today?
Yeah, I think in terms of job titles and so on, we're attracting pretty much everyone. We're growing very fast. In 2 years, we went from 50 people to 300 people. So there's all job roles that we need. I'd more say that in terms of profile, we don't try to keep everyone in delusion. We work through scale. We work very hard. We put a lot of effort into our culture. So I would say everyone that wants to join a competitive team, it's welcome. So if you're not afraid of putting an extra hour here and there, that's probably a place for you.
Now we're coming towards the end of our podcast, Michał, and I'm going to indulge you a little bit here. You're sitting in a waiting room outside a boardroom. You're about to pitch your company to the logistics director of a major international retailer, and you look across the waiting room and there are 3 or 4 other competitors of yours sitting there. How do you go in there and ensure that this logistics director is going to choose Bloq.it as their partner rather than any of your, I'm sure you'd agree, highly competent competitors?
Yeah, I would definitely point them to our references. We broke a few industry records, I would say, both on the speed of launching lockers, on the customizations we're able to provide, and then the technical stack that is currently the most advanced on the market. So less talking about myself, I'd probably just point them to the market. They should see what's there, and I think that should be a reference for them and kind of a warranty of what we're able to do.
Well, Michał, it's as we reach all too soon the end of our allotted time, I have to say I've really enjoyed chatting with you today about the parcel locker sector and the way customers such as myself are benefiting from the exciting tech that sits behind it, which your companies such as yours, such as Bloq.it, are driving. Thanks to you, the listener, for joining us today. Wherever you get your podcasts from, please subscribe to Logistics Business Conversations to make sure the next edition is delivered straight to you as soon as it's released. Until then, it's goodbye from Michał Jagotitz.
Thanks, Peter. Bye-bye.
And it's goodbye from me, Peter MacLeod. Goodbye.